Hi, Roy here. Welcome to my channel, Roy Reads Anything, where anything includes books about Cleopatra. This being Cleovember, an event I devised to focus on works, books, comics, movies, whatever, relating to the last of the pharaohs, Cleopatra. And I, perhaps being too shy and diffident, sort of said, oh, it'll just be for me. And if people might want to join in, and people are joining in. So far, I know that Groz at the GKBC, Books by Ear, Thomas, Art and Lit Matters, Art with Vicky C, and some subscribers, Kat and Wes, are definitely reading stuff along with me. And there are some possibles as well. I've got my eye of Horus on you to see if you find some time for Cleopatra in your busy lives. So Cleovember proceeds, and for me, it's been reading Cleopatra, a novel by H. Rider Haggard, Henry Rider Haggard, who was a very popular novelist, late 19th, early 20th century, particularly well known as the author of She, 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 She.
Sometimes I think I'm living with a madman.
She, and King Solomon's Mines, and lots of other, I call them mystically tinged adventure stories. So, yes, this Cleopatra novel. I didn't realise he'd done a Cleopatra book. It sort of seems obvious as the inventor of Aisha, She Who Must Be Obeyed, that another sort of striking, powerful, ancient female would be a subject for him. But it was great, really good. It's I found it to be a proper page turner. He actually says in the introduction, he sort of gives you permission to skip over the first section, but I'm glad I didn't. So basically the story is there's a guy called Harmachis who is in the bloodline of Egyptian pharaohs. So there's a conspiracy to raise him to be a replacement to Cleopatra, who was basically Greek, Macedonian. In here, they call her the Greek pharaoh, and so he's made a priest of Isis. And the first section is his sort of journey to becoming an adult, with lots of Egyptian gods and spiritual stuff. And it's I guess you could call it a bit of a fantasy in that magic works to an extent and the gods are real. So you get all of that, and then he's in position to murder Cleopatra. That's his mission, and heads off to Alexandria. And mild spoilers from now on, he does find himself in Cleopatra's court, but he does not murder her. It's the classic fall in love with Cleopatra scenario. So as far as I know, this Harmachis fellow is not real in history. So it's one of those sort of things that historical novelists do, where they have a fictional character and insert them in the action and have them kind of involved in some of the sort of key events. So we do get to see Cleopatra with Mark Antony, for instance, the sort of well-known story where she's an enemy of Rome, but by having a relationship with first Julius Caesar, then Mark Antony, that sort of turns into an uneasy alliance, and then there's battles between Roman factions that eventually leads to her demise. I don't think even Lego acknowledge that she comes to an end with by Asp. So yes, so that's the story, and there's lots of cool stuff happens, including a tomb raiding bit. So Cleopatra, to refill her treasury, is after jewels and riches, and Harmachis knows where there are some in one of the pyramids. And there's a journey, very well written journey into the pyramid, and to, transgressing all sorts of charms and oaths and wards, getting these jewels, which are actually not only in the pyramid, they're in the body of of a mummified previous pharaoh, and that's illustrated. So one thing about this book is lots of great illustrations by R.C. Woodville, including the first letter or word of each chapter being illuminated like that. And in this marvelous book, Cleopatra, Histories, Dreams and Distortions by Lucy Hughes-Hallett, she picks up on one of those. The Wicked Cleopatra of Henry Rider Haggard's novel tears open the breast of a mummified corpse and impiously plucks a sacred treasure from the oddly volvaic wound. So I now intend to try and work this, the phrase oddly volvaic into normal discussions about things.
Oh, please don't.
Anyway, yes, so that's good, but it struck me as weird because you're so used to it being modern day Westerners who are like violating tombs and risking curses. So here it's, not only Egyptians and people of that period, but it's actually Cleopatra herself doing the raiding. Anyway, yes, it's a classic tragedy in a sense. It's an adventure. Lots happens. It's a little bit dragged down by being in old-timey language. There's these and thous and stuff all the time, which is maybe not ideal, but really enjoyed this. So this Cleopatra story was first serialized in the Illustrated London News, so a very popular illustrated magazine, with the pictures and everything appearing week after week in 1889. And I get the impression that helped sort of revitalize Egyptomania, the kind of craze for everything to do with ancient Egypt. So, for instance, in that very same year, a ballet was staged at the Empire Theatre in London, which is thought to have been inspired by not exactly the story, but at least the pictures and the whole idea of Cleopatra coming out of this book. So 1889, no one now living saw that ballet, but we can read about it. I particularly like a review from Ali Sloper's Half Holiday, which was a really popular weekly comic paper. And Tootsie Sloper, part of the Sloper family, who is a sort of a showgirl, and she is Ali Sloper's daughter. She writes a lot of notionally writes a lot of the content of the publication. And she describes it thus: at the Empire, you won't complain of the serpent of old Nile, as there represented by Maria Giuri, either when tenderly seductive or in a style of bolder abandon, while Malvina Calavazzi is all an Antony, if not even more so. A very gorgeous show has Augustus provided. In the first scene, This is Augustus Harris, the producer of the show, not the Emperor Augustus, just for the avoidance of doubt there. A very gorgeous show has Augustus provided. In the first scene, you find yourself in the Roman camp, where military exercises and mock combats are blandly surveyed by a remarkably fine and shapely warrior of the female persuasion, after which enters Antony in martial array. Very shortly then, Cleopatra, in her state barge, arrives upon the scene and mashes Antony. Much to the apparent grief and annoyance of his trusty toy soldiers, who weep the salt tear as they observe him depart to a champagne supper at an Egyptian restaurateur's. In scene 2, the temple of Isis and Nices, the priestesses do a little dance, after which Pharam, a sort of clerical damp blanket, bids Antony depart, but Antony very naturally replies, with a view to more champagne suppers, "Not me, not good enough," on which enters Cleopatra with a scarf dance of a fetching pattern, and poor old Pharam takes a back seat and feels small. The last scene is the interior of Cleopatra's palace, at a period when hijinks are on, and the court generally on the rollick and rampage. Also, mummies are about and visions of the future, but nobody much minds. This scene is, by the way, about the most gorgeous I ever saw, and ought to bring the crowds, you dears, of course, included. So, a big spectacle was staged, kind of inspired by the partly inspired by the novel. A bit later on in that year, in that very same paper, Ali Sloper's Half Holiday, Ali Sloper himself, in one of the regular features, interviews H. Rider Haggard. So, and Ali Sloper is thought to be an early example of a comic book, or perhaps even the first comic book, where you got serial characters who were drawn appearing over a period of time. So one of these, Ali Sloper, who's a sort of roguish, sottish everyman, goes to Haggard's house, where naturally there are lions. So first of all, he encounters a lion, and then Cleopatra emerges. So there's this picture of a meeting of two legendary characters, but Cleopatra then transforms into a mummy. And we'll be coming back to Cleopatra in comics, where things like that continue to happen, in a later video. 1917, the Theda Bara Cleopatra movie is, again, partly based on the novel, at least on sort of illustrations and scenes from it. It's a lost film, but there is like a scene that's been resurrected bizarrely from a toy, found in a toy projector. So that's something you can find on the internet easily. But of course, again, we've got some still images and we've got written accounts. I'm impressed with the way that the publicity machine for the movie in 1917 turned Theda Bara into this compelling character. So she was already well established as her so-called vamp character, a sort of personality, I suppose. So to help keep the excitement going, they asked the question, is Theda Bara the reincarnation of Cleopatra? As well as the first actress, well, she wasn't, as well as the first actress to impersonate this famed siren of the Nile on the screen. Her personal press agent declares she is. Here are the reasons for the PA's claim. The character of Theda Bara and the character of Cleopatra are similar in many respects. The great queen was much maligned by contemporary historians because she was believed to be responsible for the downfall of the Roman Republic. In the same way, the chroniclers of today assign to Miss Bara many of the vampirish vices which she assumes for her screen work. Okay, so Theda Bara, toppler of republics. In appearance, so far as can be definitely ascertained, Miss Bara and the Siren of the Nile were similar. Only one authentic representation of Cleopatra is now extant. This is a bust in the British Museum, and it shows a remarkable likeness to the star of the modern screen. Third point, Miss Bara's last name is similar to an Egyptian word meaning soul of the sun. One of the titles of Cleopatra, and in fact all rulers of Egypt, was Spirit of the Sun.
Tenuous at best.
Well, I think the publicity guy's done a good job there.
Yeah.
Here's she herself talking after the film has been made. I felt the blood of the Ptolemies coursing through my veins, said Miss Bara when she had completed the picture. I know that I actually am a reincarnation of Cleopatra. It is not a mere theory in my mind. I have positive knowledge that such is the case. I live Cleopatra. I breathe Cleopatra. I am Cleopatra. So, first person account. Also in 1917, again, part of the whole furore, there was a song. Song came out, Cleopatra had a jazz band, which I've put in the playlist. Playlist is very good. It's mainly reggae and ska, but you get this as well. I will not sing it, but I will give you some of the lyrics. Chorus: Cleopatra has a jazz band in her castle on the Nile. Every night she gave a jazz dance in her queer Egyptian style. She won Mark Antony with her syncopated harmony. And while they played, she swayed. She knew she had him all the while in the shadow of the pyramids. 'Neath the old Egyptian moon, a sphinx was looking on and said, there'll be a wedding soon. Brutus stabbed poor Julius Caesar because he tried to please her. And on it goes. Caesar came from Rome to learn to dance the latest step, and when he heard those jazzers play, he sure was full of pep. Finally, fast forward to 1947, and Classics Illustrated Comics produced an adaptation of the H. Rider Haggard novel. What a fantastic cover with this Cleopatra face in profile and a mosaic in the background, and it's good. They've toned it down, not just violence. So nobody gets a hand chopped off or whatever. They're just punished in an unspecified way. But the spiritual aspects, the gods being real, magic actually working, that kind of stuff has been sidelined so that you weren't thinking, oh, I thought we were supposed to believe in Jesus. And also the sort of Harmachis fascination with Cleopatra herself is kind of reduced. But having said all that, it's a good adaptation, some great art for the golden age. Take a look at Cleopatra comes. They're strewing the way with flowers. Here's this immensely busy panel of her thronged by crowds, and the sequence where they go into the pyramid is suitably eerie, including a very scary bat-like creature. So yeah, good stuff. Really enjoyed this. One of the better Classics Illustrated I've read. You can get a reprint now, although I've found that the artwork in the originals was superior. So that's been more or less what we've done, and now I'm into the depths of Talbot Mundy's book, which I can't lay my hands on immediately. But yes, next Cleovember thing will be Talbot Mundy Queen Cleopatra novel from the 20s, and I'm going to do something looking at many comic book appearances of Cleopatra.